The neighbors always said the Harlows were the kind of couple people envied. James, the quiet but polite husband, who always offered a handshake and a half-smile. Anna, radiant and kind, who always remembered birthdays and left pies on doorsteps just because. On the surface, they were perfect. But perfection is fragile. And behind their walls, something darker had already begun to fester. Their house was an old wooden structure on the edge of town. The kind of place that looked picturesque from a distance, but smelled of mildew up close. The basement always reeked of damp earth, a heavy, clinging odor that never quite went away. Anna hated the house. She wanted something modern, full of light, a place without shadows. But James insisted. New houses don't have character, he told her when they signed the papers. She forced a smile, but she never felt at ease there. The neighbors sometimes caught fragments of their arguments through the night air. They couldn't make out the words, but they knew the tone, sharp, cutting, venomous. By morning, though, the couple would reappear outside, acting as though nothing had happened. James would water the lawn, Anna would hang laundry, and anyone passing by would believe the Harlows were still the perfect couple. But inside that house, silence was beginning to hold its breath. It was a late autumn evening when the end began. The trees were bare, the wind carried a brittle chill, and shadows wrapped the old house earlier than usual. That night, Anna never made it to her book club. Instead, James was seen alone at the local bar, drinking whiskey long into the night. He told people Anna was under the weather. He smiled when he said it. But by then, Anna's body already lay in the basement. James would later tell pieces of the story, though no one could ever be sure how much was truth, and how much was a desperate mind unraveling. He said it started with an argument. Anna had told him she was leaving. She was tired of living under his control, tired of his silence, tired of the shadows that clung to him like smoke. "You're suffocating me, James," she shouted. That word, suffocating, carved through his mind like a blade. In his version, something inside him cracked. His eyes went blank, his jaw locked, and when he lunged, he didn't even feel like himself anymore. The neighbors later admitted they heard glass shatter that night. But no one went to check. In the basement, James cornered Anna. He shook as he spoke, his voice low, almost pleading. But when she turned her back on him, he snapped. His hands wrapped around her throat. Her scream never escaped the basement walls. Her nails dug into his arms, her eyes bulged with terror, and he pressed harder, harder, until her body slackened in his grip, and her lips parted for the last time. When it was over, he didn't look at her face. He looked up, at the beams above his head, as though the house itself had been watching. Panic clawed at him next. He couldn't leave her lying there. He couldn't drag her outside, someone would see. He needed her gone. Erased. The basement floor was old, the boards creaking above packed earth. He fetched a spade. For hours he dug. Sweat soaked his shirt, his muscles screamed, his hands blistered and bled. Every scrape of the shovel against stone rang in his ears like a scream. He muttered to himself as he dug, telling himself it had to be done, that no one would ever know. When the hole was finally deep enough, he wrapped Anna in an old bedsheet. He lowered her slowly, carefully, as if still afraid of waking her. Her face stared up at him, pale and lifeless. He hesitated, his hands trembling, before covering her head. Dirt rained down, swallowing her whole. He sealed the floorboards above her, hammering them back into place until it was as if nothing had ever happened. By dawn, the basement looked the same as it always had. But James knew. And the house knew. The first sign came a week later. At night, when the town was quiet, James swore he heard scratching beneath the floorboards. Faint at first, almost like a mouse. Then louder. He froze in bed, holding his breath, listening. Then came the whispers. At first just sounds, too muffled to make out. But one night, clear as day, he heard his name. James. He sat upright, heart hammering, his skin cold. He told himself it was guilt. Nothing more. But the whispers returned, night after night. Then came the smell. Rot. Sweet and sickly. It crept up through the cracks in the floor, winding through the house until it clung to every surface. No amount of bleach, no candles, no open windows could make it go away. The stench became part of the house. The dreams followed. James dreamt of Anna standing at the foot of the bed. Her skin mottled, her neck bruised and twisted. Her lips moved, whispering something he couldn't hear. He woke one morning to find his bedsheet wet, as though someone had been standing over him, crying silently onto the fabric. The neighbors began to notice his unraveling. He muttered to himself in the yard, pacing in circles. Some said they saw him kneeling by the basement window, whispering as if to someone who wasn't there. When asked about Anna, he always had an excuse. She was visiting family, she wasn't feeling well, she needed rest. But Anna had no family left. Eventually, the police arrived. Not because of suspicion of murder, but because of the smell. Reports of an animal rotting in the walls reached them. An officer stepped into the basement with a flashlight. The air was thick, foul. His beam swept across the dirt floor, and then stopped. The earth was uneven, freshly disturbed. The officer called for backup. They dug. James laughed nervously, telling them they were wasting their time, but the laugh cracked into something jagged and desperate. When the spade struck cloth, the room fell silent. They pulled her out, wrapped in the sheet, her face sunken but unmistakable. Even in death, her eyes seemed to stare up at him, accusing, unblinking. James broke. He screamed, his voice echoing through the basement. She wouldn't leave me alone. The whispers, the scratching. She wouldn't stay dead. The police dragged him away, his body thrashing, his voice cracking with madness. The neighbors watched from their windows, horrified, realizing that the perfect husband had been living with a secret buried beneath his own floorboards. The house was abandoned, its windows boarded, its doors locked. But locals say the story didn't end there. Some swear that if you press your ear to the basement door on a quiet night, you'll hear scratching beneath the wood. Some say they hear a whisper, soft, faint, calling out a single name, James, and the old house waits, as though hungry, for the next one who dares to step inside.